Okay, so we finally got Bahamut's talents. To unlock Bahamut's talents, we need to beat the Awakening stage for it. This stage is locked behind the completion of Valkyrie's Awakening stage. Bahamut's stage is balanced around the treasures of Castle Cosmos tree. It is highly recommended to complete all of your Star Alien treasures before challenging this fight because half of the enemies in this stage is Star Aliens, and by half of the enemies, I mean one of the enemy because there's only like 2 main enemies in the stage. I want to give a bit of a walkthrough or guide for this stage, but I also have like some opinions of this stage. We'll save that one for later. For now, let's talk about the stage itself. There's only 3 enemies in this stage: the enemy Awakened Bahamut, Shibalien Elite, and mods. The mods are just the 3 mods that appears at the start of the stage to give you cash, that's it. The main part of the stage starts 20 seconds in where the enemy Bahamut spawns, and then Shibalien Elite will spawn a few seconds later and respawns every 46 seconds. These 2 are the only enemies you're going to be fighting throughout the entire stage. Let's talk about the stats of the enemy Bahamut. He is a floating enemy with 300 range and mimics the speed and animation of the Cat Unit Bahamut. Cat Unit Bahamut, mind you, the animation is not like the alien Raging Bahamut you fight in Into the Future 3, so this enemy has actually quite a long backswing. And of course, his main deal is that he has a guaranteed chance to create an explosion. Bahamut's damage is pretty powerful and the explosion lingers for quite a while. As currently there's no explosion immune meat shields in the game, stalling him might be difficult. It is possible to tank him using like Octopus or Kai, but they're not gonna last that long. You can still use Boulder Cat though. However, it is also possible to simply stall him with a fast meat shield. Due to his long backswing, he has a noticeable gap between when the explosion expires and his animation finishing. This gap is long enough to slip a fast meat shield like Manic Mohawk or Manic Eraser under him to stall him permanently if you time them right, similar to how you stall Hermit in Floor 30. Also check out my Floor 30 video analysis if you're interested on why it's like the best stage in the game. Next up on the enemy list is the Shibalien Elite. It's a Shibalien. Though the Shibalien is extremely tanky, boasting about 161,000 health. Even most nuker units would take at least 2 or 3 hits to kill this fella. While the Shibalien Elite doesn't really push too hard by itself, it is mainly there as a wall to push forward under the protection of Bahamut's blast. You don't really want any of that, so your main goal for this stage is to find a way to consistently deal with the Shibalien Elite, while making sure that Bahamut doesn't hit your base. It is generally recommended to play closer to the base as timing everything would be much easier. The general loadout of this stage usually consists of 1 or 2 meat shields, preferably 2, to stall Bahamut and the Shibalien Elite. 2 is preferable because the Shibalien might kill one of your meat shield, or sometimes they could even warp your eraser. Having a backup meat shield is great in this case. Fast and or tanky meat shields are the way to go, so my recommended go-to is Manic Eraser and Rice Ball. Both Eraser and Rice Ball also has a very short range that is better at stopping Shibalians and won't just stand behind the cat base if Shibalian is very close to the base. Also, Rice Ball doesn't need full talent to tank a hit from Shibalien, just needs either a few level from cat size or a couple of health up talents, but you don't need to invest too much on Rice Ball. If you do have Rice Ball or Manic Eraser at a high enough level or high enough investment, they are able to tank the final outer explosion from Bahamut, which can help a lot in timing your meat shields. You can also bring Rover as one of the backup meat shield as he is warp immune and can even deal a little bit of a chip damage towards a Shibalien, but it is pretty slow so it's harder to time. As for your main attackers for Bahamut, you kinda just need Fishman to be honest. My Fishman in the footage has max talent on speed. I would highly recommend investing at least a couple of points into the speed talent if you want to make timing things easier. Fishman is also great for the starting mood since you want to kill them fast for max money anyways. You can also use range explosion immune units like Lunasha or someone with a very high range that can outrange his explosion like Cyberpunk or like the Lugas or Cosmos and stuff. I think its explosion reaches to around 575, somewhere around there. Now, the rest of the slots should all be reserved to deal with the Shibalien Elites. Dealing with the Shibalien Elites is your highest priority. Any units that can deal a good amount of damage in between Bahamut's attack cycle is good, similar to the choices you bring to Floor 30. Remember, Shibalien has 161,000 health and 3 knockback counts. To deal with the Shibalien, you'd want to knock Shibalien back in between Bahamut's attack. This means that you want to pass the 54,000 damage threshold every cycle. Don't spawn everything in one cycle as they might miss because of Shibalien getting knocked back. Only spawn the necessary amount to reach the knockback threshold. Any units that can deal a huge damage with a fast enough attack startup is good, but it is also preferable that they are under 45 seconds cooldown, as that's the length of the Shibalien spawn cycle. Basically, your set of anti-Shibalien units should all be able to deal a total of 161,000 damage in each cycle. It is technically possible to bring units that are above 45 seconds cooldown, but remember that you can't use it every cycle, so you need either other unit to cover on the missing cycle, or you only bring that for panic button. But as long as your combination of units can deliver 161,000 damage in 3 separate shots, then you're good to go. Remember that you can also bring in damage up combos. These combos can be much more worth it investment than trying to bring a bunch of different extra units. Plus some combo units can be helpful too, like Tiny Ancient Hun has Little King Dragon and Brave Cutter has Cutter Cap. Both of these units can help in shipping Shibalien down. Research combo can also help a little bit, particularly for Fishman. A small research combo helps in allowing Fishman to be used on Bahamut 1 cycle earlier than usual, which can help in ending the stage faster. A big enough research combo can also help in your unit's cooldown. If they're low enough, you can use it multiple times in the Shibalien. Though I generally would probably recommend damage up combos more than research, I think. As for specific units to bring, first I will say I'm going to assume that the players here are just fresh out of Cosmos 3, and knowing how players nowadays progress, I'm going to assume most of you have not even beaten Stories of Legends. So I'll refrain on using certain units that require Stories of Legend completion, or units that are difficult to get at this point of the game like Supercar. Though Supercar is definitely one of the best units to nuke the Shibalien here if you haven't. Also, the save file doesn't have Supercar anyways, so you know. Slime Cat is also one of the best units you can bring here as well. A single slime hit on an undamaged Shibalien takes away most of Shibalien's health. I'd imagine Slime is a unit that some might or might not have at this point depending on the Uber that the player owns, so it's definitely a valid choice. True forming Slime is not needed. Pre-true form Slime works just fine. Also, the save file doesn't have true form Slime anyway, so you know. Some common Uberless examples are Can, Bullet Train, Kitty of Liberty, and Talented Dancer Cat. Also, yes, Chill Cat is an actual legitimate pick here. In this example, my Can, Bullet Train, Chill Cat, and Liberty has enough damage combined to kill the Shibalien thanks to my damage up combo. And since all of these units has under 40 seconds cooldown, this means that this lineup is winnable. I can start with Can to knock it back, then on the next knockback I pair Liberty and Bullet Train to knock it back again, and then finally finish it off with my Chill Cat. I can still move around the order of the spawn, but that's generally the idea. You get it, right? Every time Shibalien appears, you just need to spawn enough units to reach the damage threshold to knock it back. You can also use Fishman, but using Fishman to deal with the Shibalien means you are losing damage on Bahamut, so you're going to have to fight Bahamut longer. So try to use it only if necessary. Chill and Can might have a hard time landing a hit due to their long attack startup, but remember that you can still let Shibalien Elite hit your base. If Shibalien Elite's right in front of the base, timing Chill Cat and Can would be much more easier. As long as you can immediately knock Shibalien back right before Bahamut finishes his animation, and then slip a meat shield underneath, then you're good. Your base can tank a lot of hits, and it is much more worth sacrificing some of those health so that you can deal with the Shibalien cleanly, rather than scrambling and trying to stop Shibalien from hitting your base at the first place, but then ended up with mistiming your units that can ended up costing you your life. This whole thing about base tanking, by the way, is going to be relevant in the future videos, so look forward to that. Maybe I'll pin the video in the comments once I'm finished working on that. But anyways, for Uber picks, rushers like Yukimura or Count Yukimura or Kalissa, Blanca, all of these can work. Tanky-ish Ubers like Cradle or Last Boss or KG can also work, but don't expect them to last long enough. Something like Kai to nuke the Shibalien can also work, but remember that Kai can be warped. You might have to protect Kai from getting warped somehow. All of these units do have a cooldown higher than 45 seconds though, so be sure to still have your unit combinations work on every cycle. If you have two different Ubers, like if you're bringing Yukimura and Count Yukimura, then you can use Yukimura for one cycle and then use Count Yukimura for the other cycle, then you can use Yukimura for the next cycle again, and so on. Balrog has a cooldown under 45 seconds and he does deal a great amount of damage, so you can definitely use him for every cycle. Though he does have a pretty long startup animation, so be careful with that. Personally, I wouldn't really rely on most Ubers since most of these are a cash drain anyways. There's a lot of nice, cheaper and non-Uber alternatives that can deal a similar amount of damage with short cooldown. Range explosion immune units also obviously would be helpful. You can also use high range Ubers like Cosmos or some Lugas, I've already mentioned this before. But I think if you want to use like outranging Bahamut kind of units, then you're going to have to play a little bit farther from the base to keep them safe, which can make timing stuff trickier. Get creative with what units you own. I don't need to list every single unit that can work here. As long as it has a fast enough animation and a big enough damage, it's probably going to work. This stage isn't that hard, but it's also not that easy. Just a matter of planning on how you deal with the Shibalien, but once you know how to deal with one, you can deal with all of them. That's really about it. This stage is just a matter of planning on how to deal with Shibaliens. That's really it. Apart from that, if you're wondering about what my opinion of this stage is, because I know a lot of people are like mentioning my name and saying how excited I must be for the stage, well, my actual opinion of this stage is that I think this stage is pretty boring actually. This stage is very empty and you're basically just doing the exact same thing for like 6 minutes straight. A lot of people mentions my name and says like, oh, this is like floor 30 on release, Lucas is gonna be so excited, but no, I think this stage kinda sucks. This stage kinda blows. The enemy Bahamut does give a similar vibe to Hermit Cat on release. There's no blast immune meat shields right now and ranged blast immune units are also extremely rare, and I think this enemy could have had a really cool stage potential. I think Bahamut enemy is actually designed very well. However, the whole stage revolves around dealing with a singular peon with no variations whatsoever. No timing variety, no peon variety, you're dealing with the exact same thing for 6 minutes straight. Once you figure out how to deal with one Shibalien, the whole stage is figured out. That's it, that's the stage. Stages like Floor 30 or Eva 13 is fun because of the peon variety and the potential different peon combinations that you have to adapt on the spot, but this one's just the same thing every 45 seconds. Majority of the time spent on this stage is just stalling Bahamut, and the hardest challenge of this stage is to not fall asleep. I think most of the failed runs of this stage that I have is just me getting so bored and so tired that I ended up mistiming my units. I don't think this stage is like terrible. It is definitely one of the more interesting stage compared to like majority of the modern Battle Cat stage, but man, it is such a waste of potential because the enemy Bahamut is actually designed pretty well. But the peon choice is just so awfully boring. But anyways, that's about it. If you have any thoughts or questions about the stage, let me know in the comments and I'll catch you another time. See ya.